Most people think power is loud. They associate it with confidence, speed, visibility, and control. But the closer you get to real power, the quieter it becomes. The ultra-wealthy don't announce decisions. They don't rush conversations. They don't fill silence, and they rarely explain themselves. Not because they're trying to appear powerful, but because they no longer need to. What looks like calm on the surface is actually something deeper: internal certainty. When someone is certain about who they are, what they value, and where they're going, their behavior changes automatically. Urgency disappears, reactivity fades, and restraint becomes natural. This video isn't about money. It's about the behaviors that emerge after uncertainty is gone. The silent patterns most people overlook, but unconsciously respond to. Because real power doesn't need to signal. It's already understood. Silence makes most people uncomfortable. They rush to fill it with words, explanations, opinions, reassurance. That discomfort isn't random. It comes from uncertainty. When someone isn't sure how they're perceived, they speak to manage the room. They explain to control interpretation. They talk to reduce ambiguity. Silence removes that control. That's why it feels risky. The ultra-wealthy don't rush to speak, not because they're strategic in conversation, but because they're not negotiating their identity in real time. They don't need to clarify who they are. They don't need to justify decisions. They don't need to win agreement through explanation. So silence becomes neutral, not threatening. This is where most people misread power. They assume silence is hesitation, or insecurity, or lack of confidence. In reality, silence often signals something else entirely: a lack of urgency to be understood. When someone knows their position, they don't rush to defend it. Notice how this changes group dynamics. In a meeting, the person who speaks last often shapes the outcome. Not because they speak more clearly, but because others unconsciously adjust to them. Silence creates space, and whoever controls the space controls the frame. This isn't a communication tactic, it's a psychological byproduct. Silence becomes available only when certainty is already in place. Speed is often mistaken for competence. We associate fast decisions, quick responses, and immediate action with confidence. But psychologically, speed usually signals something else: pressure. When time feels scarce, people move quickly. They rush conversations. They push decisions. They compress timelines. Not because speed is optimal, but because waiting feels risky. The ultra-wealthy tend to move differently. They pause. They delay. They allow situations to unfold before acting. This isn't indecision, it's margin. When someone has margin, financial, emotional, or strategic, they're not forced into speed by fear of loss. So pace slows naturally. Here's what most people miss. Speed is often a response to uncertainty about the future. Slowness emerges when the future feels manageable. When you don't fear missing out, you don't rush to secure outcomes. And when urgency disappears, behavior changes first. This is why powerful people rarely react immediately. They let information surface. They watch how others move. They allow pressure to reveal priorities. Time becomes a filter. Those who can't wait expose their uncertainty. Those who can gather leverage quietly. Slowness, in this context, isn't laziness. It's insulation. The ability to wait without anxiety is one of the clearest signals that power is already present. Display is usually misunderstood. Most people assume wealthy individuals avoid display out of humility, taste, or strategy. But psychologically, Display serves a simpler function. It manages perception. People signal when they're uncertain how they're seen. They highlight success to anchor identity externally. They show status to reduce ambiguity. Display fills a gap. When someone is internally certain, that gap doesn't exist. They don't need recognition to feel legitimate. They don't need visible proof to stabilize self-image. They don't need external confirmation to maintain confidence. So signaling becomes unnecessary. Not avoided, just irrelevant. This is why overt display often feels loud. It's compensating for something unstable underneath. The more fragile the identity, the stronger the signal needs to be. That's not a moral judgment, it's a psychological pattern. Ultra-wealthy individuals tend to under-signal instead. Their choices don't announce status. They don't optimize for being noticed. They don't perform success. Because when identity is secure, image management becomes optional. Restraint, in this context, isn't minimalism. It's confidence without reinforcement. Most people feel pressure to decide quickly. They associate decisiveness with confidence and hesitation with weakness. But psychologically, fast decisions often serve a different purpose. They relieve emotional tension. Deciding quickly ends uncertainty. It closes the loop. It provides immediate psychological relief, even if the decision isn't optimal. The ultra-wealthy relate to decisions differently. They don't rush to decide because they're not trying to escape discomfort. They're comfortable holding incomplete information. They tolerate ambiguity without anxiety. So delay becomes natural. Not avoidance, but patience without pressure. This ability to wait changes outcomes. When decisions are delayed, more information emerges. Other people reveal priorities. Constraints surface on their own. Time does part of the work. Those who rush expose urgency. Those who wait gather leverage quietly. This is why powerful individuals often appear slow to commit. They're not indecisive. They're insulated. Their identity isn't tied to being seen as decisive, so they don't need to prove it through speed. When urgency disappears, decisions stop being emotional reactions and start becoming structural choices. There's a reason performed power feels exhausting. When someone is trying to look powerful, they're constantly managing perception, monitoring reactions, adjusting posture, tone, timing. Every interaction becomes a negotiation. That effort isn't free. It consumes attention. It creates tension. It keeps the nervous system alert. This is why people who perform power often appear intense. They speak quickly. They assert repeatedly. They reinforce authority through volume, speed, and presence. Not because they are powerful, but because they're maintaining an image. And image maintenance requires energy. Real power operates differently. When identity is stable, there's nothing to maintain. Behavior simplifies. Reactions soften. Urgency fades. The need to perform disappears, because nothing is being defended. This is what most people never notice. The calm you associate with the ultra-wealthy isn't discipline. It's relief. Relief from proving. Relief from signaling. Relief from needing to be read correctly. That's why their behavior feels quiet. Not because they're trying to appear powerful, but because power, once internalized, stops asking to be seen.